when my kids come up and they point at a logo on a bulletin board, or they'll see one of my vehicles and they'll just say, "Hey, that's you." They won't say, "Hey, that's the company you own this."
Right. They
just automatically say, "Hey, that's you." And my daughter, before she could talk, she would point at the logo.
Really?
Okay. And so that's kind of pretty cool. Get good at reading, get good at enunciating. Like it doesn't seem like it would be a big deal, but being able to share a very clear message is extremely important when you're an entrepreneur.
Good morning, Savannah, and welcome to the Savannah Business Showcase. I'm here this morning with Tersh Blisset, partner and marketing officer of TriStar Heating, Air, and Plumbing here in Savannah, Georgia. And we are here to talk about business, podcasting, but we also want to let everyone know about an big event that's coming up called Shop Small Savannah, the campaign, Shop Small Savannah campaign, which is the Saturday after Thanksgiving, 11/25/2017. It's co-partnered, the Small Business Chamber, Buy Local, and the City of Savannah have partnered to bring the City of Savannah Shop Small campaign for the second year in a row. If you want to learn more about it, you can go to shopsmallsav.com. But we'll get to more of that in a second. So Tersh, the way I like to start the show is to give you a scenario. Here's a scenario, because the goal of the show is to motivate entrepreneurs, to inspire entrepreneurs to get off the sideline and actually do something and start.
Okay.
And to inspire them to keep going. Right. So here's a scenario: you're in your neighborhood, walking down the road, and a little kid comes up to you. They say, "Tersh, you're my hero. Right? I want to be like you when I grow up." Right. So in the language that a 10 or 12-year-old can understand, what does it take to be Tersh Blisset?
Oh, wow. That's kind of deep. First, I want to say thanks for inviting me to be here on this show. We have a lot going on in the community this time of year. It's really kind of crazy. But if I was to talk to a 10-year-old about becoming me, I would tell him to read. That's something that I regret not doing earlier in life. I was the type of child that growing up, I just wanted to go outside and play, and I wanted to go kick the soccer ball. Growing up playing soccer, I see my sons doing the exact same thing. They want to go outside and play soccer, and of course, if I let them, they would stay inside and play video games. But I really am kind of anti-video games. But and it's funny because my oldest son is 9. He's about to turn 10, and he's kind of getting into that kind of communication with me and saying, "Hey, Dad, I want to run your business one day, or
nice.
work for you one day." And my best advice is, especially if there's any type of entrepreneurial instinct in the child, is going to be read, get good at reading, get good at enunciating. Like it doesn't seem like it would be a big deal, but being able to share a very clear message is extremely important when you're an entrepreneur, because we have this disease of grandiose ideas stuck in our head, and if we can't put that to paper, if we can't express that in words, then it's going to confuse everybody, and it'll become frustrating for the individual themselves. The worst thing in the world is to just overthrow somebody with just all your crazy ideas, and in your head it's going to work perfectly,
right.
But as soon as it comes out of your mouth, it's just gibberish. And so the biggest thing would be just learn communication skills. Excuse me. Learn the communication skills, and get up and start talking to people. A lot of us entrepreneurs, we have great ideas, and we don't really like getting up in front of people sometimes. At least that's the way I feel, and I still struggle with this myself a lot. So getting up in front of people and talking, and just tell everybody everything, that comes to your mind. And as the more you do it, the more you learn, those communications things. But the biggest thing would be to pick up a book and start reading, and start at a young age. Even if you're, I was a slow reader, and when I was in school, my teachers would make me read in front of the class. Yeah. And that just, it created this huge stage fright for me, because I would stutter over my words, and I could read it. I felt like I could read it perfectly if I was reading it to myself or reading it silently. Right. But as soon as I started to read out loud, and then all of a sudden I would start
the nerves.
Yeah, exactly. And so then when it came to public speaking, those same feelings just automatically came right back to it. So if I was a better reader, I feel like I could be where I'm at 10 years ago. I could be where I'm at today 10 years ago, because I would have had more self-confidence in that realm of things.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you communicated that very clearly. Okay. Yeah, now every time I stutter on the podcast, I'm going to think about that. I'm going to fail you. But yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Reading was great for me. I found all the entrepreneurship, self-help books after college, towards the end of college, and that's when everything started firing off in my head.
For me, I cannot tell you the first podcast I listened to, but it came shortly after going to a class. So with our company, we do air conditioning and plumbing, but on the air conditioning side, we're a Train dealer, and Train sends us to several classes. Oh, nice. So I went to a class in Atlanta, and I was talking to the instructor about all these ideas that I had, because I knew that I wouldn't see this instructor. He wasn't a competitor, and I didn't have any competitors in my room, so I was really open about the ideas that were just bouncing around in my head. And he immediately was like, okay, he pulled me to the side afterwards, and he said, hey, okay, have you read E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber? And I said no. So I was like, okay, I got to get that book. So before I even left there, I had ordered it already on Amazon, and it was at the house as soon as I got home. I read that book, and then immediately went to search it on the podcast. Okay. And so that's probably the first one. And at that time, they didn't have a podcast, but a couple of the other books that you know how Amazon does. They suck you into that black hole of, okay, if you like this book, you may like this one. So I just binged, read, and listened to audiobooks, and then I started searching their podcast, and then I got hooked on Entree Leadership, a Dave Ramsey podcast, and I started listening to his guest, and every time he'd have a new guest on there, I would search that person and then go through it. And so now I'm following these guys like the Michael that wrote Profit First, the new book.
I listened to his podcast too.
Perfect. And so and actually, I don't know if you've listened to that book or not. Have you ever? No. Okay, so the audio version of the book, he actually, and I had no idea about this, but he had communicated with Jesse Cole from Savannah Bananas, and so he mentions them a lot in the audio version of the podcast of the book itself. So it was really funny, because I'm riding down the road listening to it, and I'm like, hey, Jesse Cole, okay, that name sounds familiar. And he says, Savannah Bananas, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's such a small world.
It really is. It really is.
But I kind of got hooked, and it wasn't like after college or after high school that I just picked up a book and started reading it. It was literally probably a little over a year ago that I first started doing it. And then I was at a point in my life that I had the opportunity to just run with it, and so I kind of just took the ball and ran. And I regret not doing that in high school or college. If I had done the same things that I've done over the past year, 2 years, 10 years ago, like, where would I be in life?
Well, but I don't know. I don't know about that. You can't look back like that, because if you do it early, then you're gonna make. What am I trying to say here? if you do it too early, right, you're gonna want to do 100 different things, and you're gonna do everything you read in every book. But you already had your business.
That's very true.
You're able to read the book and pull out what you needed to make you successful.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree with that. I agree with that because there are some things in the books that I'll read or listen to, and it's like, that may work in this industry, but it's definitely not going to work in this industry or this area, because you know, as much as I love Savannah and I love the area, there's certain things that will work in LA that is not going to work here, or there's some things that are going to work in Austin, Texas that just really are not going to work here. And my goal with that, if I find myself in that situation, that scenario, is to put my spin on it. So put the Savannah spin on things, or, you know, the Statesboro spin on things, because you know, I live way out yonder. So I love to associate things with Statesboro and Savannah, and even though I trek back and forth between the two a lot, you know, I try to put my little spin on it. If it just, as soon as I read it and it's like, okay, that's way out there, then
so like, give me an example. Like, what's the Savannah spin? Like, what works here? Like, what do your clients like here?
Okay. If it has something to do with, let's say it was industry specific. So I could read something and they're talking about fuel oil, or having a gas furnace type scenario for your heater. Here in Savannah, like if you're in the downtown section of Savannah, there's still a fair amount of gas systems, gas furnaces, but predominantly our area is what's considered a heat pump area. So when somebody's talking about something that's fuel oil specific or gas furnace specific, and having you know, metal trunk lines and metal ductwork, and when our area, we're predominantly a flex ductwork type scenario, I try and assimilate. I try and associate those two. So I'll take and put into consideration the fact that, you know, we'll still do the flex ductwork side of things, but we will seal it. We will make sure that it's up to, you know, balancing the airflow the same as somebody would when they're doing the quote unquote metal duct system that's a high-end duct system. So we'll still balance it out properly, and we'll still, you know, make sure that all of the bedrooms are comfortable. We'll still, you know, test and balance everything and measure static pressure. I don't want to get into technical terms of industry, but
blazing me over here. Go ahead.
But we will go above and beyond to make sure that, even though in that industry and the things that really work for that company or that business in the northern climates, we may not practice those same things here in Savannah. And so what we would do is just do the things that we do practice just a step above anyone else.
Gotcha.
So and that's really tough whenever you get into certain markets that are the quote unquote, you know, price conscious market. Okay. So they're not cheap people. They're just used to a certain price. And so when you come into the market and you say, okay, well, it's going to be you know, $5,000, and they're used to paying $3,000, you have to figure out why you're $2,000 more. And if it's because you're testing and balancing and sealing ductwork properly, and, you know, you can balance airflow to one specific bedroom, you know, you can do all those creature comforts. If their living room was always warm and now it's very comfortable, you have to be able to explain that that's the reason why it's $2,000 more expensive. You could come in and just throw in the ductwork and you could be not comfortable and save $2,000, or you can spend an extra $2,000 and be extremely comfortable, and then not even air conditioning would be the last thing you thought about. Except for every month when you're supposed to change your air filter.
Good luck with that. All right, so cool. Okay, so that's great advice. So you also, and to lead into that, you also have a podcast.
I do.
Service-based business mastery. Is that wrong?
Service business mastery.
Service business mastery.
Yep.
For service-based businesses.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
So,
it's just for it's for the business owners, the business managers, and technicians who are thinking about becoming business owners and business managers.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I was coming up in the industry, I really didn't have a lot of the background knowledge as far as QuickBooks and collecting bad debt and all those kind of things, marketing type stuff.
Right.
And I find that most of the technicians, most of the business owners in the majority of the service industries are just technicians who thought or assumed that they could do it better than their business owner.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the thought process that I've found is that the technician says, hey, I know more about this industry than the guy who's sitting in the office not doing really anything.
Yeah.
And so they just leave the industry, they leave that and then go into the business owner side of things. And a lot of that is because the business owners don't tell the technicians a lot of what's going on the back side of things.
Right.
And so my goal with the podcast is just to kind of put it all out there. And then any of the business owners who are in the industries, the service-based industries, that are on the verge of giving up because nobody will help them.
Mm-hmm.
There's companies out there that will help, but those companies, they're going to charge for you.
Right.
And I'm not a mentor by any means, because you have to be, this super, genius in your industry to be a mentor.
Well,
but I feel like
I'll argue with that everybody, but go ahead.
I feel like it's kind of a mentor type atmosphere.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
so it's, I don't have any gains out of it. There's not a gain for me to teach you how to be a better company than I am, because I still do have a company, and so I still need to make money. But it's truly just my giving spirit. I just really want people not to fail. Especially, I have some friends who are really hard workers and they have the best of intentions, but they just, some things just don't click. And so my goal is for them to just have that aha moment where they're listening to a podcast and they're saying, oh, okay, I understand now. That makes complete sense. That makes a lot more of a sense to me. I see why you do it the way you do it now. And that's kind of my end goal. And then the other reason why I don't mind spilling the beans, a lot of my friends here in town listen to the podcast. They could take exactly what I say and go and do it. They're not going to.
Right, yeah.
So
Right.
you have to implement everything, and that's a big thing. Implementation. We could have the best of ideas in the world. Like, you listen to Gary Vee, and he'll talk to you about, you have the best ideas, but if you're not implementing it, then it's junk. Yeah.
Completely worthless. I agree with that wholeheartedly. That's why I love doing a radio show, and I did a show early with a business counselor, one of my first shows, Mark Butler of the UGA.
Oh yeah,
SBDC.
yeah.
Anyway, so I did one with him, and like part of the show, we went over like a mock business plan that I put together for a donut shop.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but I learned a lot from him, and he gave me a lot of great advice, and I still use him as a mentor now.
Awesome.
But yeah, like I wasn't worried about sharing that business plan because I knew 99% of the people out there listening were not going to do it. It's not 100%.
Right.
So yeah, I agree with that. And there are some gains to a podcast. I believe you that you're doing it from your heart, or you do it honestly. But there are some gains to a podcast.
Yeah.
Because you gain a little bit of you gain that mentorship role by the people looking at you, listening to you. Like, you gain some authority in your industry more than anything.
Yeah, and when I first started doing the podcast, it definitely wasn't. I didn't want to gain authority because I'm way down on the totem pole as far as our industry goes. But one thing that I really do enjoy about it is the networking aspect of it, because a lot of guys have reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'll be on your podcast," or "You should have so and so on the podcast," and whatnot. So I've been able to meet a lot of people who otherwise I wouldn't have met in our industry. And so that's really helped out a lot.
Awesome. So we'll move on to something else in a second. But like, what's one thing you've learned from doing your podcast?
One thing that I've learned: time management.
Okay.
Because as a business owner, I felt pretty confident on my time management skills, but having to do a podcast and having to have it published and put out the same time every week, you really got to be on your P's and Q's about making sure that your time, I could record an entire podcast, but then I still need to do an intro for it, and I may put the intro off for a couple of days, and then next thing you know, it sneaks up on you like, hey, I got to do this intro before the week's end or whatever. So that's probably the biggest thing is time management.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Yeah.
My the radio show we're pre-recording this now. I pre-record them all because schedules come up and I don't like being left at 8 a.m. in the morning with no guests. But yeah, I pre-record them, and 50% of the time I'm up at 4 a.m. doing the editing before I get on the road at 6:30 or 7 a.m. But yeah, cool. Okay, so we got about 10 minutes before break or so. Do you want to talk about Shop Small Salve? Yeah,
that's great. So with us being entrepreneur based, talking on the radio and everything, we as a small business don't survive without the people in town, our local people. So Shop Small Saturday is basically where everybody on Saturday after Thanksgiving, so it's a Saturday after Black Friday, you go to all your local vendors, your local stores, restaurants, and everything, and just that's where you spend your money. If I could convince people to save half their budget from Black Friday and spend it locally, it helps out so much with the community, because when you're buying local, you're helping send a daughter, a son to a soccer camp. They're going to Savannah United, they're going to Storm, and soccer's close to me. I told you I played soccer growing up. My kids all play soccer, so like the local soccer stuff, they play Impact in Statesboro. So I mean, we travel all over soccer, and if it wasn't for local people buying local, we wouldn't be able to send our kids to soccer camps and soccer practice. So you're not paying for a CEO of a company to get their fourth vacation rental or their vacation house, off in the Keys somewhere. You're paying for a local family to send their kid to, soccer camp. Right. And so it's so, and it doesn't, most people don't really realize how important it is for you to shop local, because you say, I could save $2 by buying it on Amazon. Right. But that's $2 that truly would go to help somebody, your next door neighbor. Right. Is that $2 worth? Saving that $2, is it worth that? So Shop Small Saturday is where the whole community gets together. We get American Express dumps a lot of advertising into it, and so they do a lot as far as pushing the Shop Small Saturday, and we have hubs all over Savannah. Harkle Road Jewelers on the south side, they're a hub. We have downtown. Why am I having a brain fart? So on Broughton Street, we have Trek Savannah donated a scavenger hunt, which is awesome. Cool. Because you get to download an app on your phone, and you start first thing in the morning, and you just scavenger hunt all over Savannah. You can do your little hub right there in downtown, and it's really cool. We did it last year, my wife and my children and some friends of ours and their children. We just got strollers because we knew the kids would be over it in about 15 minutes. So we got the strollers and we walked around downtown, and there were shops that I didn't even know existed, but because they were on the route for the Trek Savannah, the scavenger hunt, it was really awesome. We really just met new people and mixed and mingled, and spent $20 here, $10 there, and it was really cool. And we tried out new things, and we got went to the salt table, and we just were buying up stuff, and now we make it a point to go to Broughton Street, even though we live way out. We live out in Statesboro. You go to Broughton Street to buy stuff. Well, we do the same thing in Statesboro. Don't get me wrong. If you're listening in Statesboro, we buy local in Statesboro too. But we come to Savannah, and we'll purposely hunt things out that are local.
Mm-hmm.
And there's sometimes that you'll go in these shops and it's cheaper than going to Amazon.
Yeah.
You just didn't know it because you hadn't been there. So that's the best part about the Saturday, the shop small Saturday, is you go and you meet these people, these local people, and sometimes you'll meet somebody and you'll say, "Hey, I know you from somewhere."
Right.
And then after you get to talking for a minute, you know, they're best friends with your next door neighbor.
Yep.
And you didn't realize that, you know, the connection was there, and that networking, it really just grows the community also.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's very true. And it's and you get it faster.
Yeah.
You get shipping, but
exactly. You pick it up, it's in your hands right there.
You could try it on.
Yeah.
So
it's awesome. City of Savannah has really stepped up. They're teaming up with us. So it's the City of Savannah, and then Buy Local Savannah, and then the Small Business Chamber, Savannah Small Business Chamber, and that we've all teamed up together and working on it. ShopSmallSAV.com is the website. So if you want any kind of information, you go there. We're on all of the social media platforms, and the day of the event, I'll be out interviewing people live, cool. And then there'll be a couple of, you know, Marsha Baines and all of us. We'll all be out there. Lauren Matthews, Amy Dover. I don't know if you know any of these people, but if you're an entrepreneur in Savannah, you know the names.
Yeah.
They will all be out there working together to get you know, interviews and get on social media, get feedback with the business owners and the customers also.
Awesome. All right, we'll do our best to be out there.
Yeah, good.
We'll do our best to be out there.
It is really a good time though. Yeah. I mean, you like.
I think my in-laws will be in town anyway, so
yeah, so it's perfect.
Yeah,
so you get, and it's the weekend after Thanksgiving, so honestly, they came in on Monday or Tuesday. You had Thanksgiving and you're tired of them being in your house. Let's go out. Let's go shop in Savannah. Let's get away from each other for just a few minutes.
That sounds about right.
So it's, I mean, it really would be a good time. He's like, hey, Mom, go check out that store over there. I heard it's really good.
I'll be here with the kids.
I'll stay over here with the kids. Or, hey, Mom, take the kids with you.
There you go. Yeah.
Just don't let them tear up anything. Yeah.
That's cool, man. Okay. All right, so you're involved with a lot of these. You're involved with Buy Local, right?
I am.
Small Business Chamber?
The Small Business Chamber, the Savannah Small Business Chamber, I'm a board member. The Buy Local, I'm a member, but I'm not a board member, and I go to all the events and everything, so they're always a great time.
What, like how important has networking been for you, and like, do you have any tips for networking in Savannah?
Do it. Do it. It's like we started the conversation off. It was, you know, I'm an extreme introvert. I'm the type person that if it was my choice, I would go to the networking event and I would go sit in the back corner and not say anything to anybody, get me something to eat and leave. But it's really helped the business side of things. I get calls all the time. You know, we do other networking events too. I mean, Savannah's the type of city that you can network yourself to death if you really wanted to.
Yeah, I've noticed.
And so all you have to do is just get on Facebook and click, you know, any of the groups, and the networking stuff comes up. That there's so many awesome business owners that are in the networking groups that it's a no-brainer. Once you've done it, then you'll just say, "Why haven't I been doing this?" Does that make sense? So my business partner, he's not much of the networker. He's more of the operations side of things. So he'll stay in the office, and I will go out and, you know, do a lot of the networking and kind of be a face of the company type thing. But and I don't mind that. At first, that wasn't my thing. I wanted to stay in the office. I wanted to do the you know, the management side of things. But I really see the benefit once I started doing it. I've seen the benefits to the company.
Right.
For me going out there and actually doing it. And I get phone calls constantly. I get text messages constantly. Hey man, can you send somebody over here? And these people are people that I met at networking events, and I would never have met them outside of networking events because I don't visit their establishment. I'm not. Some of them own some bars downtown, and because I live out so far out, it's very rare that I can come to Savannah and hang out on a Friday or Saturday night. So I wouldn't have met these people. And so going to the networking events, I met them, and then so we can get out there, and those are the people that you really build that relationship with. And so when they need something, you're Johnny on the spot, and you get it there and you get it taken care of. And that's, you have to stand behind your brand too. So you have to make sure that whatever you say you're going to do, you do it.
That's right.
So you don't overpromise and underdeliver. That's the worst thing in the world to happen.
Very true.
But yeah, the networking events. I wouldn't say that networking has caused our company to just explode, but it's been a very nice addition to the company.
Awesome. All right. Well, Tersh, we're gonna take a quick break, and we're gonna come back with the lightning round.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So everybody out there, stick around. This is Tersh Blisset, partner and marketing officer of TriStar Heating, Air, and Plumbing here in Savannah and Statesboro and Richmond Hill and all over the place. He's also here to support and promote Shop Small Salve. So you can go to shopsmallsalve.com also and check out all the events coming up in the next couple weeks. So guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in just a minute. All right, Savannah, welcome back to the Savannah Business Showcase. I'm Tersh, your host, and once again, I'm here with Tersh Blisset of TriStar Heating, Air, and Plumbing, and we're going to put them through the lightning round. You ready?
I'm as ready as I'm going to be, I think.
All right, so basically the lightning round is a bunch of random questions. You can answer them as short or as long as you want to.
Okay.
All right. What did you want to be as a kid, and how does that relate to your current business?
Oh, wow. What did I want to be as a kid? Looking back, I always wore a fireman's costume for Halloween, so I would imagine that's probably what I wanted to be.
Every year?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
When I didn't do the obligatory Ninja Turtles when it was out, New Kids on the Block. Was it New Kids on the Block, Vanilla Ice that was Ninja Turtles? Yeah, so I was Ninja Turtle, I was definitely a firefighter. So I would imagine it was probably a firefighter as a kid. And how would that relate to what I'm doing now? I put out a lot of fires. Yeah.
That's true.
I put out a lot of fires. My goal is to have as few fires as possible in the company. I guess that's probably the best way it would relate to.
Okay, all right. How have you approached failure in life?
Oh, failure sucks. It's going to happen. Accept it. If you're not failing, you're not putting yourself out there far enough. Obviously you don't want to be a failure, quote unquote, in life. But if you don't fail at a task, you didn't put enough. You were too far in the comfort zone. You stayed in your comfort zone too much. If you knew the end result, that's a tough one for me because I don't like failing.
Right.
Like that is. You talk to my wife and she'll tell you firsthand, if there's something that I've failed at, it's tough. And so I don't like it, but if it happens, it means that, maybe I didn't plan enough. Maybe I didn't have any control over it. So there's nothing I could have done. So yeah, if you've never failed in life, then you haven't put yourself out there far enough, I feel like.
That's true. Yeah, my son was just like, we went to a parent teachers conference, and we'll get back to the lightning round in a second.
Yeah, you're good.
we went to a parent teachers conference. She said that, like, as far as math, he's like gifted, right? Reading, he's almost gifted.
Wow.
And my wife's real hype about it, but I'm afraid to tell him he's gifted because I don't want that situation. I don't want him to think that if he fails at something, it means he's not good enough, or I don't want to be afraid of failure.
That was really,
what I mean?
That was really tough. Whenever I was in school, I was in a similar situation as your son, and so I would, rather than push myself and put myself into a class that was maybe harder than, I was still in classes that were a year or 2 years ahead of my grade level, but I should have been the third year ahead of my grade level, and had I done that, I would have had to study. I would have had to do my homework every night, and I would have had to really push myself. Right. And it was really easy for me to do the other. And so probably out of fear of failure.
Yeah.
I didn't push myself to that next level.
Yeah.
And so I wish that I had done it, but then things might be different than they are today.
That's
so,
true.
You
never know.
Right.
But that's why we have kids, so we can screw their lives up. Who influenced you early in life, and who's your mentor now?
Influenced me early in life. My parents. My parents split up at a young age. Whenever I was really young, both of them continued to work hard. They both still really worked hard, and I never seen them like slack or use being a single parent as an excuse. My mom went through, as a single mom, she went through college, heck, until I was in middle school or high school. Wow. I feel like she's now working on her PhD in education.
Oh, that's awesome.
She went through MCG in Augusta, and then decided that medical wasn't her thing, so she went into education and got her specialist, and she teaches children with special needs right now.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so she really has a heart for it, and so she's got really specialized degrees, and she's still doing it. She's continuing to learn, and so that's a real inspiration to me, that the never give up learning, never stop learning type mentality. And my dad, he's that blue collar, like just really, he's gonna break his back to make sure something's done the right way and make sure it gets done. And so they both are kind of two ends of the spectrum, and it's really nice because my mom's really focused on the education side, and my dad's really focused on the make sure you get things done the right way, the integrity, and don't do, just because nobody's looking at you, don't do it a halfway job because somebody's not paying attention to you. You have to sleep at night. Right. So I'd say my parents are my biggest inspiration. That was my biggest inspiration growing up, and I still look up to both of them. Mentors, I would honestly say other business owners. I wouldn't say that I have one major mentor. I don't have one guy that I talk to all the time, one girl I always talk to. I do have a friend of mine who has a podcast, Brian Orr. He's I guess he would be the closest thing to kind of a mentor. Other business owners, and there's some mentors that don't even know they're mentors to me, like Jesse Cole, like I listen and watch what he does, and Michael Brooks, the guy that owns South Magazine, we talk all the time. We have good friendship, but watching what those guys do really helps me focus on things, and seeing what works for them and what doesn't work for them. I have some guys who are the same age as me who are mentors to me because I can see what they're doing, and they'll coach me on certain things that work for them and don't work for them, and so that helps out a lot.
It does help. Yeah, you kind of have to have it's 3 levels of mentorship. You need a mentor that's above you, ahead of you. You need a mentor that's kind of you're working with, and then you need to mentor somebody else too.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Tell me a story about a failure.
Ooh, a failure. Okay. A failure. Well, I was in the air conditioning industry, and I left the company that I was at, and it was right after a divorce, so that was a failure, that marriage. So my focus was on the marriage side of things and less on the business side of things, and so it wasn't fair to that company for me to be there because I was, in charge of a lot of people. Yeah. So when I left that company, I started up a trucking company. So I would long haul trucks or vehicles. I hauled vehicles, and that business venture was a failure. A lot of it had to do with my mind wasn't focused on the business side of things, and then also I felt like I was wasting a talent, driving the truck and having, focusing on that whenever I was relatively good in air conditioning. Gotcha. I was good at the business side of the management, managing an air conditioning company and owning an air conditioning company. So I felt like I was wasting a talent there,
Mm-hmm.
and so I didn't even sell that company. I just closed up the doors, and I could have sold the company and made money, and
Yeah.
sold the clientele, and I just didn't do it. So technically, that's considered. I mean, that was a business failure. So those two things, and that time period of my life was really a period that I had to step back from and self-reflect, and considered probably the biggest failure in my life to date.
Okay.
And so after that point, that was whenever I really was determined, I'm going to do the air conditioning thing. We're going to, I got my license, and I started up my own business, and so things have really kind of taken off from there.
Yeah. So there's another entrepreneur out there about to go through your same failure.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what advice do you have for them?
Whew, that's a tough one. Everybody's different, I feel like, but avoid divorce if you can. do what it takes.
It's not possible always, man.
Do what it takes to try your best to avoid it. The divorce wasn't my doings. It wasn't because of actions that I took. So I'm with you on that. It's not always avoidable. So if at all possible, avoid that. It's going to be a huge mental drain on you for 2 years, 3 years. Some people longer, some people less. If you have children involved, that makes things difficult. So that would be my biggest advice for that. But seek out professional help. Okay, so seek out a psychologist, seek out a psychiatrist. After my divorce, I went back to school for psychology, and for industrial psychology. But it really helped me understand. I wanted to do it because I wanted to understand the way my guys think and my girls think in the office and in the field, and how to better coach them as people. But with that training, I learned a lot about what a psychologist knows that the general public just takes for granted, or they don't really know about. And so it's as a guy, it's really hard to say, okay, I'm going to go seek help. But if your end game is to become an entrepreneur, you have to have a clear head, and you have to learn how to focus on the task at hand, and you won't be able to do that if you haven't figured out a way to grasp what happened, accept it, and move on. It doesn't mean you have to forget about everything, but just getting the professional help, I would definitely recommend that. And the thing about it is you go to one physician, you go to one counselor, and you don't mesh. Don't stay there. Go to another one. They're all over the place. And as soon as you find that one that clicks, they may become like a lifelong friend of yours. You may just develop that relationship with them. They may become a coach for your business also. Help you to where you can coach your team.
That's a good point. Yeah, I actually just interviewed a psychiatrist.
Really?
Out of Richmond Hill. He has a tattoo sleeve. He got the earrings.
That's funny.
Everything. Yeah, he's a great guy. I enjoy it, and that makes a lot of sense why he's such a good interviewer and podcaster, because you have that psychology background.
Oh yeah,
because you have to ask
sense,
questions. That makes sense now. I got you. Okay, all right. What have you had to sacrifice in order to start your business?
Spending time with family. That's probably the go-to, safe answer that every business owner says.
Most of them say that,
sacrificing with family. I've been really fortunate. I have a remote office at my house. Our office is about 61 miles away from my house. So, I have a solid 2 hours of travel every day. But for me to complain about that is, minuscule, because you live in Atlanta market and you could live right down the street and have a 2-hour drive.
That's true.
So I spend those 2 hours every day listening to podcasts mostly, or books on tape. But the biggest sacrifice I would say would probably be with family, and having things like, if I was doing the same thing that I'm doing now but working for someone, my salary would be probably 3 or 4 times what it is now. Maybe not. Maybe a little less. I mean, there's obvious benefits and perks to the ownership side of things.
Right.
When it comes to write-offs and that type of thing, but actual salaries and dependable income that you know is going to come every day, there are things that the long-term gain prevent me from taking money, out of the business. So the kids have sacrificed, the family's sacrificed on certain things like that, and our goal at the end of the things is, eventually financial freedom.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're first starting out a company, you're the exact opposite. You're financially broke because you're putting every, dollar back into the business. Unless you use, if you use a mentality like profit first, and so reading that book kind of has opened up some avenues for me. So I really am I'm planning to implement all of that in January and see how that goes. We find the mentality is to, pay your expenses, pay your overheads, and then keep your profit for your business out next, and then pay yourself last if there's any money left. It's kind of the typical status quo. That's what most people will consider the proper business plan, as our pay structure for a business. And the great thing about the Profit First book is it's exact opposite. So you take your money out, you take the profit for the company out first. You take your owner's pay out second. You take those things out, so you're going to do it. And then you go to Parkinson's law, which is every space and time, space and why am I having a brain fart? Space and objects will expand to fit any time void. So basically, any space will be expanded to fit your allotted time.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I said that way out of whack, but
I get it.
Okay, so if you have $1,000 to pay your bills, you'll figure out how to pay your bills with $1,000. But if you have $1,200, you'll find a way to pay your bills with $1,200. And then at the end of the day, you're less likely to take that other $200 out for net profit and owner's pay. So if you already start with that $1,000, and then you'll figure out that, hey, I can't pay my bills with $1,000. Well, then why can't you pay your bills with $1,000? You have too much overhead, or you're paying too much for your expenses, or you didn't price the job correctly. And so that it takes you as an owner closing up shop in 5 years because you've lost money or you didn't make enough money out of the equation. So it's really one of those aha moments. That
or you try to sell your business and it's all debt.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And somebody's like, I don't want your business, I just want your customers.
Right.
I don't want that side of things because that's poorly run.
That's true.
You ran it terribly.
Man. Okay. All right. Great answer. All right. Let's move on. A couple more. What's the one thing in your business that drains you of energy, and what's one thing that excites you?
One thing that excites me, well, one of the best things that excites me is the brand that I've kind of created. When my kids come up and they point at a logo on a bulletin board, or they'll see one of my vehicles and they'll just say, hey, that's you. They won't say, hey, that's the company you own. This,
Right.
They just automatically say, hey, that's you. And my daughter, before she could talk, she would point at the logo.
Really? Okay.
And so that's kind of pretty cool to me.
Pretty cool.
And the thing that drains me the most is the day-to-day operations when it's not running smoothly. So having a partnership is tough. It has its major perks, but it has some major downfalls because you have to make sure that you communicate really well all the time. You're both on the same page, and when you're not on the same page, it's a huge drain on you mentally. And so that's probably the biggest drain, is when there's a lack of communication and everybody's kind of going in 3 different directions, and in your head, okay, this is the direction that I want to go, but it wasn't communicated well enough. And so the next day or the next week, you're revisiting that situation, and it went in a completely different direction, and you're trying to either wrangle it back in or see their side of the reason why they changed what you said, to do.
Let's do 3 more.
Okay.
What motivates you?
What motivates me? The future. The customer's experience. I know it's kind of cliche term, or answer, but my goal is to improve the customer's experience, and no matter what I'm doing. In our industry, in air conditioning and plumbing, there's a handful of plumbing companies that I feel like are working on it. They're doing a good job. The air conditioning side of things really needs some improvement. Like I said earlier, we've kind of gotten into the mentality of cost conscience, and when you're cost conscious, you have to cut out certain things, and customer service winds up being one of the things that kind of gets cut out of it. And in our industry, I really want to bring the customer service on par with other industries, and where our industry is about 30 years behind everybody else, I feel like, in just general technology and in customer service aspects of things. So my goal is to bring us up to today, and then surpass today's technology as far as customer service goes. And that can be put into perspective within the industry. You can find things to do better than anybody else, and if you can do it for the same price point, perfect. If you can do it, if it's more expensive, then you have justification for being more expensive. So
if you had a superpower or ability, what would you choose and why?
Photographic memory.
Okay.
Photographic memory with a mixture of speed reading.
Okay.
So I could speed read and remember everything that I read, and I could remember right where it was at and stuff, because it sounds trivial, but man, I'll listen to something or I'll read something, and a few days or weeks or a month later, heck, a year later, I'll be like, man, I know that you're asking a question, I know the answer, and I want a source for it, I want to reference it, so people aren't just assuming that I'm just throwing stuff out. So, and then I, for the life of me, cannot remember where I read it, and so I'll wind up rereading or trying to Google search a certain term, and and so that would definitely be it. So,
well, at a certain point, it's just your advice. It's like, I heard it here, but that was mine. I can't remember. Okay, last one. Advice for entrepreneurial kids.
So children who are entrepreneurs. Okay, so the kid that sets up a lemonade stand. That thing. Okay. Learn your true operating expenses.
Okay. All right. Very practical.
Yeah.
All right.
Learn and understand what your true operating expenses are. Just because the water was free doesn't mean it was free. The pitcher that you're pouring lemonade out of wasn't free. The wood that you built the stand out of wasn't free. And a lot of times, even adults will say, well, look, my truck's paid for. I don't have to budget that into my overhead expenses. Yes, but you will have to replace your truck. So you need to budget, replacement, a new vehicle. You need to act like you're, making a payment on a truck. That's true. That would be my biggest thing, and that's something that doesn't get talked about enough because there's adults that don't understand it. So if children understood it, if all the children that I ever seen that said, hey, I'm gonna, I'm selling X, Y, and Z, and I'm gonna sell it for 50 cents. Well, how much did it cost you to make it? 50 cents or 49 cents? Yeah, but what about your time and your effort and your knowledge? Just know your operating expenses, know your overhead, your true operating expenses.
Great advice. Great advice for me, guys. So, thank you, Tersh, for being on the show. How can people find you?
It's my pleasure. Well, TriStarSavannah.com is the work website. Anybody can email me if they want to ask me any questions. Tersh@TriStarSavannah.com. That's my direct line for email. If you're interested in anything to do with the podcast, You can search us on iTunes, Stitcher if you're a Google subscriber.
And the name of the podcast again?
Service Business Mastery. It's a green logo, or it's in green writing, and it says Service Business Mastery with Tersh Blisset on the actual image. You can the website for the podcast is bluecollarroots.com/service business mastery, and so that's, you can also listen to it from that website also. If you are a business owner, I highly recommend getting out and networking. And if you're a morning person, come to our monthly small chamber business meetings. They're at Cohen's Retreat, and they're at 7:30 in the morning. So those things, and you can find all that stuff on Facebook, and I'm on Facebook too. You just look up Tersh. It's Tersh, and there's not very many of us out there. So
I feel the same way.
So ask me any questions, message me on Facebook, send me an email. I will try my best to get back with you ASAP. Typically, I'll do it unless I'm rushing around with the podcast trying to meet a deadline. I'll get back to you ASAP. But the Shop Small Saturday is really important. ShopSmallSAV.com, and that's on Instagram and Facebook also. That event really helps the community, and it helps other entrepreneurs grow their business. And it's a type of networking also. Networking really is important for people, so that your brand recognition, you can spend all the money you want to on brand recognition, but whenever the other business owners, if you're B2B and other business owners are putting a face to a name,
right,
and they it really helps out a lot to go to the networking events. Your buy local lunches it's at Cohen's Retreat too. It's always a packed house, so you need to make sure you RSVP for that, because it sells out pretty quick. But it's really a good time, and you get to meet a lot of great people.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna interview Mickey soon.
Really?
Yeah.
He's a lively character. I love Mickey.
All right. Well, thank you, Tersh, for being on the show. Thank you, everybody out there listening, and I appreciate you guys. As always, go out there and do something impactful to help your community. And we don't have that much time left. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have a limited amount of time on earth. So take some action. Don't be afraid. Like, jump out there and do something that's going to help somebody around you and somebody you love. So thank you guys for listening. As always, love you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.